All right, here we go. For no apparent reason whatsoever. Here we go.
Stat. Say it loud. Say it loud. One more time. Say it loud.
Hello, it's TV's Tim Stack. I'm talking to Jordan Black. I played that James Brown song, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, because I love that song. And I grew up, I don't know what your town was like, but the town I grew up in was incredibly white. Doylestown, Pennsylvania, when I grew up there. I mean, it was just like, there were some black families there, but it was just like, nobody even knew they were black because they were just like everybody else. The Nelsons, literally the family of the Nelsons. Town nurse, and he was the barber. It was just like nobody. So there was a movie called the Tammy movie. I don't know if you've ever seen the Tammy movie. And it was, I actually later worked with the guy who directed the show, Steve Binder. And it was all these rock, like the Rolling Stones and the Beach Boys. And it was made in the 60s. Terry Garr was a dancer on the Tammy movie. But all of a sudden, my brother and I go to the county theater in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and James Brown comes on the Tammy movie. And we never saw anything like that because we're in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. And it was just like, what the heck is what is going on here? With who is this James Brown and how is he acting like that? And it's so cool and so different. Anyway, so that was why I chose that song for that little intro.
I love that. I love that. Yes, my town was, when I was younger, was very lily white. We lived on the lily white side of town. And but by the time I graduated high school, it was very non-lily and black.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you had white flight. Everybody went to the suburbs. But it was great. I mean, for me, it was the best of both worlds. This was
not a city, though. What's the name of the town?
The town is called Kankakee.
Kankakee. Okay.
Yeah, Kankakee, Illinois is about 50 miles south of Chicago, but a world away.
But that's interesting though, because if you witnessed white flight like right in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
Were you aware of it at the time?
No, didn't even give a thought to it. Matter of fact, because we were the first black people in our neighborhood. And then I remember when another black family moved in, and we were so excited.
Yeah.
Oh, they got, and then like everyone's selling their houses. We don't care. We're kids. We're not paying any attention. And I remember there was this white couple. They were so sweet, and I remember them moving in. When the neighborhood was still all white. I remember them moving in, and then they must have just gotten married. And then she was pregnant. They had a baby, and the guy was so nice to all the kids in the neighborhood, and including me and my brothers, and then they were the only white family left. Really? And that for sale sign was in front of their house for so long. And I remember he wasn't as friendly anymore. And I remember my mother telling us he's just sad because they can't sell that house. He's upset.
Right.
Eventually they moved. I don't know if they sold the house or what. I'm guessing they must have, but eventually they did move.
That's really interesting because Howard Stern talked about that so much, about being the last white family on the block when all this white flight was happening in Roosevelt, where he lived. But it's very interesting from a black point of view. I find it interesting from a black point of view, like the white flight, to see people leaving and black people come. Was the first black family in? Were they friendly? Were they nice?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, they had kids our age, so it was love at first sight. We were just happy that some more. Not that we hadn't thought about we wish there were more black. That never dawned on us.
Right.
We were just friends with all the white kids, and then these black was like, oh, some more black kids. We're not the only black kids. We got to go down to their house right now. The Hollises.
That's really funny.
They were the Hollises. But yeah, so, and then eventually it was all black neighborhood, and we loved that too. We loved it when it was all white. We loved it when it was all black.
You should think about that. If you're looking for something to write about sometime, that's very interesting, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting town.
Yeah.
Very interesting way to grow up because the town was pretty much 50-50 black and white. So school was a lot 50. So I always tell people it's interesting because I haven't really experienced that anywhere else in the world, where you had all these black kids and white kids who grew up together, going to schools together. from all the different socioeconomic backgrounds all together. Like in LA, everybody's separated. All the races are separated, the socioeconomic classes are separated. But there, so like when I would go back for high school reunions and things, it was like there's a thing that you notice as a black person when you're around white people who are comfortable around black people. Not that other people are racist, but just like you're used to being around black people. We're not exotic to you. And so, and I realized my classmates that I grew up with, that we're not, they grew up with us. They're just like, they're not impressed with blackness. They're not scared of blackness. They're not intimidated by blackness. They're like, what, if somebody black jump bad, they're like, well, we gonna fight. Like, I don't know, because there's no mystery to us for them. And that's the only place I've experienced that. Is my hometown.
Because maybe that was it. When my brother and I saw James Brown, it was like, oh my God, what a mystery.
Well, yeah, I mean, James Brown would make anyone have that reaction, I think.
But we didn't even know. It's just so great. So again, I'm talking to Jordan Black for the Black version. So, but let's talk a little bit about your writing career, because you've sort of said goodbye to acting other than improvising the blend. And if a role comes along, you'll obviously do it. And we talked about that at breakfast on this whole new way of auditioning on videotape. It's
the worst. Self-tapes are the worst.
They're terrible. I don't know. It's another victim of COVID.
Yeah, it is.
Audition process. And it's like you have to make a movie. It's like you need a director to do a self-tape.
And a cameraman and a computer technician.
Yeah.
And then find someone to read offstage dialogue for you. It's like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Anyway, if I were younger, I'd be game, but I'm me.
Yeah, no, I am the same way. And I had I shouldn't talk about it. I had an acting agent who would give me auditions, and I finally just said, I'm terrible at this. Like, I'm not good. I used to book like, it's like, I don't.
I've heard a lot of actors say, like, now that everything's self-taped, they stopped booking. Whereas before, when they were in the room, they were booking more.
Yes.
Of course, being in the room makes a huge difference because you're meeting them.
Yeah, and
you're not just a person reading the lines they've heard a dozen other people just read.
Yeah, and maybe try it this way, or maybe try it. You can't do that on a it's got to be perfect.
Yeah, but apparently, I know this is boring for the audience, but apparently casting directors love it because they can see 400 people instead of 100. And I'm like, did you need to see 400?
Right. And they get to stay at home and not.
Yes, exactly, all of that. And they'll have to rent offices. And
so I noticed on your IMDb page, and I knew you had done this, was you went to Saturday Night Live for, I guess, a year?
Yeah.
Was that in hopes of getting on there as a performer?
Yes, 100%.
Why didn't that work out?
Okay, I'm going to try to be very diplomatic here.
Well, I have an SNL story too, so I know about being diplomatic.
Yeah. So when they offered me a writing job, I auditioned for the show. I auditioned like 2 years before that audition. I didn't get it. I thought it was over. 2 years later, they asked me to audition again, and they said, oh, we want to offer Jordan writing with the possibility of performing. I said, no, I don't want to be a writer at SNL. I want to be a performer at SNL. And it was a hard decision. It was not an easy decision, but I knew I would be miserable writing on a show that I dreamt of performing on. And so I said no. And then it was this back and forth all day between my manager and SNL. And what was reported back to me, and I don't know what the truth is, was that Lorne said that I would get to perform. That he promised I would get to. They're going to hire me as a writer, but he promises I'll get to also perform. I said, okay, I came. I did not get to perform. So I finished out that whole season because I was like, I'll give you the whole season. I don't want to leave in the middle and go, oh, we're just going to put them on here. So the season ended. I was miserable the whole season. And I said, and I wanted to come home to LA where I was happy, because I could go back to Groundlings and do Groundling shows. I can go back to auditioning. I wanted to act and I wanted to be on camera. And so that's what I came back and did. What I didn't know that I know, well, this is the diplomatic part, I guess, that I'm going to say anyway. What I didn't know that I know now is that everybody was miserable. And I didn't know that. I thought I'm miserable, so that means I'm not a good fit. I should leave. Let all these people enjoy their jobs and not have to look at my miserable face. And then years later, I'm talking to all my friends who come in and they were like, I was like, I didn't know everybody, the actors are unhappy, the writers are unhappy. I was like, oh, everybody's unhappy. Now, if I had known that, I wouldn't have been. I'd be like, oh, okay. Well, this the nature of this show.
It's
So
so funny. I'll tell my story quickly, but it's the same thing. I went there with the attitude of, this is the greatest. This is Saturday Night Live, and I was hired to write on the show to then get ready for the fall. This is
Mhm.
6, so this is a long time ago,
Mhm.
and it didn't work out. But part of what I didn't know was that what you're saying, everybody's miserable there. I didn't.
Mhm.
I just got, come on, guys, aren't you thrilled? It's Saturday Night Live. You must be so happy. No, we're not happy. We're not happy. I also didn't realize the politics of
Right.
the cutthroatery, if that's a word.
Mhm.
It's so important to get your stuff that you'll do it at the expense of somebody else. It's like, which is not me. I've never ever done that in my life.
Mhm.
Never created anything to try to get it to work at the expense of somebody else. It's always like, if you like it, great. If you don't, I'm moving on. I'm fine. I can handle rejection.
Right, exactly. And I mean, in SNL's defense, like, to the cutthroatery of it all, it's like not everybody there is that way. Some people succeed without being that way.
Yes.
But those who do that also are rewarded for that as well. Like, there's no like, if you're a cutthroat, that can be rewarded.
Yes.
And it's like, it's not really a good fit for me.
Yeah, I remember Hartman telling me later, and he did everything after this incident that happened. I was still thinking I could be on the show, and then he got on, and he was still trying to get me on. And he just years later, he just said to me, he said, I really removed myself from that. And by the end, he started out like he was in one sketch, but by the end of his run there, he was every sketch. It was crazy.
He was the glue.
Yeah. But you've written on a bunch of shows now, like Last Man Standing, and like a classic sitcom, and the black version, not the black version, but the Black Wonder Years.
Yeah.
Was that a good experience?
Great experience. It's probably the best show I've ever written on. We are canceled. We won't be back for a 3rd season. But it was probably the best writing experience not best writing. It was one of the best writing, but also the best show. Like, when you look at it, put up on the screen, look at it, just like, it's one of those things where, and I'm sure you've had this, Tim, where you see something and you go like, I'm perfect for that. Why am I not writing on that? Or that was something I'd be proud to work on. Yeah. And that was a show where I actually watch the show every week when it came on live, just as a fan. Like, I couldn't wait to see the show. Like, it would come on Wednesday nights at 8:30, I think it was. And I'd watch it because it was like, I was excited to see the show, even though I was there for it. It was that good to me. And we won a Peabody Award for it. So I'm not the only one who thought it was great. And I heard from people who saw it, the reaction I got from those who watched it was exactly the same reaction I had. Like, oh my God, I can't believe how good this is. Yeah. So yeah. And also, yes, the writing room experience was fantastic. We had a great showrunner, Saladin Patterson, who I've worked with in the past many times, and he's a delightful showrunner, just great. And he put together a really great team of writers, and I'm not including myself in that. I was very lucky, and that show came out just perfect to me. It was,
I confessing, I only saw the pilot. I really, really liked it. I tend to watch dramas as I get older.
Yeah. I understand that. Me too, mostly. Yeah.
But I really, really enjoyed it. And I thought, like, oh, they did a great. I had acted on the Wonder Years, the original one.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I did one episode of that. It was fun. Yeah, I played the officious teacher.
Of course, right.
All the time, officious teacher. Oh, yeah, Mr. Johnson. He's boring. But I just thought, yeah, that's a show that's going to work. It's like the way Blackish worked. That work.
Yeah.
And, I guess it didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're up against so many things that are out of your control, and but I go into every job knowing it will end, and so I just enjoy it while I'm there, and then off to the next thing, hopefully.
Okay, we have run out of time for segment 3. This thing is flying along. I'm talking to Jordan Black. Check out theblackversion.com, which is a website for the Black Version play, which is, we've talked a lot about. It's just so much fun and so clever. And he's on Twitter at Fake Jordan Black. And I'm on Twitter at TV's Tim Stack. Now, I don't do TV's Tim Stack as like, that was my character on My Name is Earl. That's why I'm not thinking like, Yeah, I'm the creator of television.
You're a Tim. You're a big deal. Just own it.
Okay, thank you. I was TV's Tim Stack, and you're listening to It's Radio with TV's Tim Stack. We'll be right back.
Yes, you are.